Hi, Greenheart Buddies, and welcome to today's episode of Greenheart at Home. My name's Miss Allie, and for our lesson today, we're going to be joined by Greenheart Project's Executive Director, Jesse Blum, and his two kids, Miriam and Moses, who are going to help us explore in our lesson today.
Hey guys, I'm Jesse. I'm Executive Director of the Greenheart Project, and we're the Blum family. Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Miriam. I am helping my dad make the garden. Hello, my name is Moses. I'm 8 years old and I'm in 3rd grade.
Awesome. Welcome, guys. I'm so excited to have you with us today. So before we get started with our lesson, we are going to go over our 3 Greenheart rules of respect, which we review before any lesson that we do. I'm going to say our rule of respect, and I'm going to send it out to our friends in the garden to see if they can help me brainstorm some ways that we can practice respect. So the first rule of respect that we practice in Greenheart is we respect ourselves. Garden team, do you have an idea of how we can respect ourselves?
Don't hit yourself or get mad at yourself.
Yes.
Just be nice to yourself.
Just be nice to yourself.
The second thing we respect is that we respect our Greenheart buddies. Garden team, what's a way that we can respect our Greenheart buddies today?
Don't hit them or make them feel bad.
Yeah, don't make your buddies feel bad.
And the third thing that we respect in our Greenheart lessons is we respect this earth. Moses, can you help me out and think of a way that we can respect our earth in our lesson?
Try not to hurt any plants in your surrounding area or throw this enormous plastic bag onto the floor for no reason.
All right, buddies, now that we've reviewed our rules of respect, we're ready to get started. For today's lesson, there are 2 different options of how you can choose to use this video. The first, if you have a garden, you can use this to help you plan directly in your garden to decide what you're going to seed or you're going to plant. If you have a garden, you'll need a measuring tape, a pen or pencil, a piece of paper or a journal, some seeds or plant starts, and it's optional to have some twine or string to help you break up your garden using the technique that we're going to learn. If you don't have a garden, that's okay too. All you'll need is a pen or pencil and a piece of paper or a journal, and you can brainstorm about what you might grow in your garden. All right, buddies, before we get to our gardening technique, we need to review the 5 basic needs of a plant so that we can be thinking about what our garden is going to need to grow. I'm going to send it out to Jesse, Miriam, and Moses in the garden to see if they can get us started in brainstorming some of the basic needs of a plant.
Miriam, tell us, what do plants need to grow?
Sun and water.
Sun and water.
Soil and mulch.
Awesome. So Miriam just reminded us of 3 basic needs of a plant. The first is sun. Our plants need sunshine to make their own food through a process called photosynthesis. The second need of a plant is that they need water. Just like our bodies need water to stay hydrated, our plants need water as well to be able to grow. The third basic need of a plant that Miriam mentioned was that our plants need soil, meaning they need nutrients and food. Just like we eat lots of food to fuel our bodies, our plants need to get nutrients from their soil in order to grow big and strong. Our fourth basic need of a plant is that our plants need air. Just like we as humans breathe, our plants need air as well to allow them to breathe and to grow and stay alive. All right, now we're going to send it out to Moses, who's going to tell us about our 5th basic need of a plant.
Plants need a certain amount of space.
They need space?
To grow. Yeah.
Exactly. Our 5th basic need of a plant is that our plants need space. So Jesse, which one of our basic needs are we going to be talking about today in our lesson?
Okay, so one of the plant needs we're going to talk about today is how plants need space. And one way that we ensure that plants get the space they need is through square foot gardening. Yeah, Mo, can you tell us about square foot gardening?
Square foot gardening is a way to plan your garden geometrically so that you know exactly where each plant goes in your garden.
That's exactly right. Square foot gardening is a gardening technique that focuses on how many plants can fit comfortably within 1 square foot. Square foot gardening aims to make sure that plants have the space that they need to grow while maximizing the amount of produce that you're able to grow. It also allows farmers to plant efficiently, meaning they get the most produce out of their space. So now that we've defined what square foot gardening is, we're going to send it out to Moses in the garden, who's going to show us how he used this technique in his garden.
So this is square foot gardening. We had to measure our garden by inches and then turn those inches into feet. And we got around 9 feet, so we made 9 rows. And then we measured, and the other part was 40 inches, which is around 3 feet. So we made 3 columns.
Thanks, Moses. So as Moses just showed us, he took his garden and measured out inches and then turned it into feet. He likely used some form of measuring tape like this one to help measure his garden. You'll notice that we have our 1 foot measure right here, and there are 12 inches in a foot. For our Green Heart Gardens, we already know their foot measurement, so we're not going to use inches, but in your own garden, it's important to remember that 12 inches equal 1 foot when you're measuring. Now, let's take a look at one of our Green Heart Gardens. The raised bed gardens in our Green Heart Gardens are 8 foot by 4 foot beds. To figure out how many rows and columns we need in this garden bed, we're going to have to do some math. To find out how to set up our square foot lattice, we are going to do some garden calculations. So buddies, my first math problem for you is how many rows will we have if we divide the height, 8 feet of our garden bed, into 1 foot sections? This math comes down to being 8 feet divided by 1 foot. What does that equal? If we take our 8 foot garden bed and divide it into 1 foot sections, we are going to have 8 total rows in our garden. Our next garden calculation is to figure out how many rows we'll have across. So how many rows will we have if we divide the width, 4 feet, of our garden bed into 1 foot sections? This math problem will look like 4 feet divided by 1 feet. Take a minute and calculate this in your head or on your piece of paper to see if you can come up with the right answer. All right, so we took 4 feet and divided it into 1 foot sections. That means that we're going to have 4 rows across our garden bed. You'll now see that we have created an entire garden lattice, which is essential to have drawn out to use our square foot gardening method. The next math problem we're going to do is we're going to calculate how many square feet do we have total in our garden. To find this, we are going to calculate 8, our height, by 4, our width, to figure out how many square feet that we have. Take a minute and think about the answer to this math problem. Have you come up with an answer, buddies? 8 times 4 equals 32. So in one of our Green Heart garden beds, we have 32 square feet of space to plant our crops. You can use this same process on any size garden. Whether it's a raised bed or in the ground, you can take measurements of your garden space and help to use those calculations to figure out the square footage of your garden. If you're growing an actual garden today, it can be helpful to use string or twine to help measure out your square feet in your garden. We do this in our Green Heart Gardens to help us keep organized and to make it clear where our square feet lie. All right, buddies, now that we've done these calculations, I want you to pause when I go back to the garden map, and I want you to copy it down onto a piece of paper or into your journal. So now that we've split up our garden into square feet, how do we use this? Moses, how do we plant our plants into this garden?
It depends on the plant how much space they need.
Exactly. So different plants have different spacing requirements. Some plants only need a little bit of room to grow, while others need much more space in order to grow big and strong. Using this square foot garden planner, we're able to see what plants have what spacing requirements. You'll notice that some plants, like parsley, cilantro, and kale, can only have one plant per square foot. Other plants, like carrots, beets, peas, bush beans, onions, scallions, chives, or thyme, can have more plants per square foot because they have different spacing requirements. Let's do an example to see how we can determine how many plants can fit per square foot. To do this, we're going to take a closer look at one of our square foot gardening squares. For this example, we're going to use carrots, which need 3 inches of space to grow. Given this information, we're going to have to do some calculations to figure out how many carrots can fit within our garden. Just like we broke up our large garden bed into square foot squares, we are going to figure out how many 3-inch spaces we can create within our 1 square foot garden square. So the 3 things that we need to figure out are: how many rows of seeds can we fit across our bed, which will be a math problem of 12 divided by 3. We will also have to determine how many rows of seeds we can plant going down in our garden bed, which again will be 12 divided by 3. The final question using those answers will determine how many total carrots can we plant within our 1 square foot of garden space. So buddies, take a minute and think about those first 2 math problems. What is 12 divided by 3? Got an answer? Let's see if you're right. So if we take our garden bed and divide it into 3-inch sections going across, we get a total of 4 rows. Similarly, if we break our garden square into 3-inch rows going down, we have 4 rows there as well. Given this information, we now know that there are 4 rows going across and 4 rows going down that have 3-inch measurements, which is enough space for a carrot. With that knowledge, we know that we can plant 1 carrot per square. Take a minute to either count the squares that you see in this picture or to do the math problem of 4 times 4 to see how many carrots we can plant in total. All right, buddies, do you have an answer? 4 times 4 equals 16. So, in this 1 square foot of our garden, we can fit 16 carrot plants. So now that we've done this example calculation with carrots, you can use this same math to figure out the spacing needed for any plant that you might have. The thing that you'll want to determine is how much space, how many inches, are needed between each of your plants depending on what you're growing. For example, kale needs 1 foot of space to grow. That means that within a 1 foot by 1 foot square, you can only plant 1 kale plant. So you can use these calculations to figure out whichever plant that you might be growing. And if you need some help with the math, maybe you can ask an adult or a teacher to help you figure it out. Now that we've learned about how to break our garden into square foot sections, and we've learned a little bit more about the different spacing requirements needed by different plants, it's time for you to use the garden map that you copied down earlier on in this video and prepare your own garden to grow using our square foot garden planner. You can look through all these different crops and decide which ones that you might like best and which you might want to grow in your garden. I want you to pause on our garden planning guide and spend 5 to 10 minutes thinking through which plants you're going to grow in your garden. Remember as you're doing this that each square in this garden planning guide should match up to one of the squares in our garden map. For example, if you wanted to plant a celery plant, you'll see that there is one celery to a square foot. If you want to plant just one in your garden, you'll put one celery plant in your garden map in one of the squares. If you wanted to plant multiple, you would put one celery plant per square for as many squares as you wanted to fill. Alternatively, if you wanted to plant, let's say, beets, you would have 9 beets per square that you choose to put beets in. So when you're done, you'll have 32 total squares that are filled with different or the same crops, depending on what you enjoy. All right, buddies, now that you've chosen what crops that you might want to grow, I want you to notice the different spacing requirements that these plants need. Maybe some of your plants need more space, so there's less plants per square foot, while others are able to grow really close to each other, so there might be a lot of plants per square foot. Take a second and see which plants need the most space and which plants don't need as much space. Now that you've determined what plants you're going to be growing and explored a little bit more about your plant's spacing needs, let's go back out to the Blum family to see what they're growing in their garden.
Okay, Miriam, what do we have growing in our garden?
We have some zinnia.
Zinnia? Which one's that?
This one.
What's a zinnia?
It's a flower that has many leaves.
Yeah, okay. What else is growing?
We have some kale.
All right. And each plant has enough space?
Yes, they have very enough space.
What else is growing?
We have some tomatoes. Okay, I want to explain a little about these different tomatoes. This one is an Amish paste tomato, which is usually big and red and used for making tomato paste, and it's in the name. This is a sun gold tomato, which are those little, yeah, they're those little cherry tomatoes that you can just pop in your mouth and eat. This is another sun gold tomato that is the same variety. This is the Cherokee purple tomato. It's kind of like the Amish paste, but it's a slicing tomato.
Cool.
And isn't used for canning or any of that stuff.
All right.
Now I'm going to tell you about our basils. We got these cinnamon basils from a farmer's market. These are the cinnamon basil, and they have a very different look and taste from the sweet basil that we have growing here, which is usually used in Italian dishes. And also, we have one little parsley plant here that is related to our celery. Parsley is used in many dishes from many different places.
Your garden's looking awesome, guys. Some of the things that we have growing in our green heart gardens using this technique include strawberries, corn, squash, beans, kale, collards, We have some flowers like zinnias and sunflowers. And we also have a bunch of herbs growing like dill, cilantro, and basil. All right, buddies, so we're reaching the end of our Green Heart lesson. And if you've ever done Green Heart, you know that we always conclude our lessons with a taste test. I'm going to send it out to our garden friends to lead us through a taste test of some of their garden herbs today. But I want you to remember that it's important that you always ask an adult before trying something that you pick from a garden. You want to make sure that you're eating something that's good for your body and not something like a weed or something dangerous that could potentially put your health in danger. So make sure you always ask about what you're going to pick from the garden before you try it.
And now, for this, I personally think this is the best part. We are gonna do our taste test with our special guests, sweet basil and cinnamon basil. We're all going to pick a piece of these different basils and try them all at once.
All right, which one do we do first?
Their reactions. I think we'll do cinnamon basil first.
All right.
So, Miriam, Miriam's picking the cinnamon basil from the floor. And I'll pick this piece. One.
Got it?
Ready?
One, two, three. How's it taste?
It tastes like eating.
A 1, you don't like it so much. A 2, you like it okay. A 3, you love it. What do you give it?
Okay, I'll give it a
big 3?
1.5.
1.5, you don't like it so much?
No.
Okay. All right. How about some sweet basil?
Okay. Sounds good, but okay. Can you give me one? A little bit of the lower leaf. Thank you. I'll try a little of the lower leaf as well.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
I taste a lot more of that spice.
All right, 1, you don't like it so much. 2, it's okay. 3, you love it.
I don't exactly love it, so I'm also going to give this a 2.5.
2.5? All right. I give both of them.
2 3/4.
I give both of them a 3.
All right, buddies. So we've reached the end of our lesson, and I want to spend a minute reviewing some of the things that we've learned today. The first thing that we learned were our 5 basic needs of a plant. We had sun, water, soil and nutrients, air, and space were our 5 needs of a plant that any plant that we grow needs in order to survive and grow. The second thing that we went over today was we talked about square foot gardening. We learned how to calculate our total space in our garden and break it up into square foot sections to help us grow. We also learned that different plants have different spacing requirements, and using the square foot method is a way for us to determine how many plants we can grow within our garden. We also heard from Jesse and his family, who showed us around their garden and gave us a wonderful garden tour, and who led us through our taste test and got to try some of the herbs that they're growing in their own garden. That's all for today, my friends. Let's go back out to our garden team so that they can say their goodbyes.
Woo!
Okay.
Thanks
Good.
for watching, guys.
Thanks for watching our video.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. We'll see you next time on Green Heart at Home. Bye, buddies.